The unexpected reunion. The neon-drenched streets of Neo-Pacific City stretched endlessly below Adrian Drake's penthouse apartment, a maze of light and shadow that had been his home for the past decade. At 42, he had built himself a comfortable life as a private security consultant, though comfort wasn't exactly what he'd been looking for. The real reason he'd chosen this particular apartment, with its panoramic views of the city's bustling spaceport, was the constant reminder of that fateful day 25 years ago when his mother's ship had disappeared into the stars, never to return. Adrian stood at the window, watching as another passenger liner descended through the evening sky, its anti-grav systems creating ripples in the perpetual fog that clung to the city's upper levels. His reflection stared back at him, tall, athletic build maintained through rigorous training, and prematurely gray hair that he'd stopped trying to hide years ago. The security panel beside him chimed softly, indicating an unexpected visitor. "Display visitor feed," he commanded, and a holographic image materialized in the air before him. The woman standing outside his door made him freeze. Her skin was a subtle shade of violet, almost luminescent in the corridor's artificial lighting. But it wasn't her alien appearance that caught his attention, it was her eyes. They were his mother's eyes. The woman spoke before he could activate the intercom. "Adrian Drake. My name is Lasara Venn. I believe we share the same mother." His first instinct was to activate the security lockdown, but something in those familiar eyes made him hesitate. Instead, he found himself walking to the door, palm hovering over the entry panel. "Prove it," he said through the intercom. Lasara held up a worn holographic locket. He recognized it immediately. His mother had worn it every day until her disappearance. The image it projected showed three figures, his mother, himself as a teenager, and a tiny purple-skinned infant. With a deep breath, Adrian opened the door. Lasara was tall, nearly matching his own height, with delicate features that somehow managed to bridge the gap between human and alien beauty. She carried herself with a grace that seemed almost supernatural, though he could see tension in her shoulders. "I suppose you'd better come in," he said, stepping aside. "I have questions." "I'd be disappointed if you didn't," she replied, entering with measured steps. Her voice carried a slight musical lilt, another reminder of their apparent differences. She placed a small bag on his coffee table and sat down, her movements careful and deliberate. "Our mother," she began, "didn't die in a shipping accident like you were told. She discovered something during her research into cross-species genetics, something that powerful people wanted to keep hidden. She knew they were coming for her, so she took me to Lamaria, my father's homeworld. She wanted to return for you, but..." Lasara's voice cracked slightly. Adrian poured himself a drink, not offering one to his supposed sister. "Why come forward now? After all these years?" "Because they found me," Lasara said simply. "The same people who forced our mother into hiding. They're still protecting their secret, and now they're hunting both of us. I need your help, brother. And I have information about our mother, she's alive." The glass in Adrian's hand nearly slipped. "Alive? That's impossible. I saw the wreckage reports. Falsified. All of it. She's been continuing her research in secret, trying to expose a conspiracy that goes deeper than either of us imagined. But she needs us, Adrian. Both of us." Before he could respond, his security system flashed red. Multiple armed figures were converging on his floor. Lasara stood up, her violet skin paling slightly. "They followed me. I'm sorry, I thought I'd lost them." Adrian was already moving, grabbing his emergency pack from behind a false wall panel. "There's a maintenance shaft access in the kitchen. If you're really my sister, try to keep up." As they slipped into the narrow maintenance tunnel, Adrian's mind raced. His quiet life had just been shattered, but strangely, he felt more alive than he had in years. The mystery of his mother's disappearance, which had haunted him for so long, might finally be solved. And this alien woman, this impossible sister. They descended through the building's service infrastructure, the sound of pursuit growing more distant. Lasara moved with surprising agility, matching his pace without difficulty. When they finally emerged in a sub-basement level, she grabbed his arm. "There's someone who can help us," she said, slightly breathless. "A scientist named Talia. She worked with our mother, and she's been protecting me. She has proof of everything I've told you." Adrian checked his tactical display, marking multiple exit routes. "And I suppose this Talia is trustworthy?" Lasara's expression softened. "About as trustworthy as a violet-skinned alien claiming to be your long-lost sister." Despite himself, Adrian felt a smile tugging at his lips. "Fair point. Lead the way, sister." As they moved through the shadows of Neo-Pacific City's lower levels, Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just become infinitely more complicated, and possibly more meaningful than it had been in decades. The mystery of his mother's disappearance had always been a wound that never fully healed. Now, with Lasara's appearance, that wound had been torn open again, but perhaps this time, it could finally heal properly. The truth was out there, hidden in the stars that had taken his mother away. And now, with an impossible sister by his side, he had a chance to find it. Hidden truths. The underground laboratory was a stark contrast to Adrian's sleek penthouse apartment. Nestled deep within the forgotten industrial sector of Neo-Pacific City, it was a maze of repurposed shipping containers and salvaged equipment. The air hummed with the sound of quantum processors and atmospheric purifiers. Talia turned out to be nothing like what Adrian had expected. The scientist was tall and willowy, with silver-scaled skin that seemed to ripple in the laboratory's harsh lighting. Her 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, studied him with unnerving intensity as Lasara made the introductions. "Your mother spoke of you often," Talia said, her voice carrying an electronic undertone that suggested cybernetic enhancement. "She never forgave herself for leaving you behind." Adrian watched as she moved through her laboratory with fluid grace, her long fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "You said you have proof. About Mom, about why she disappeared." "Better than proof," Talia replied, activating a large display screen. "I have her research logs. Everything that led to her discovery, and her decision to go into hiding." The screen filled with technical data, genetic sequences, and research notes. But what caught Adrian's attention was a video file, timestamped just 3 months ago. When it played, he felt his heart stop. There was his mother, older but unmistakable, her face lined with years but her eyes still bright with determination. "If you're watching this," the recording began, "then Lasara has found you, Adrian. I'm so sorry for all the years we've lost, but what I discovered, it had to be protected. The consortium isn't just experimenting with cross-species genetics, they're trying to create weapons. Living weapons." Lasara stepped closer to the screen, her violet skin seeming to pulse with emotion. "Our mother discovered that the consortium was using illegal genetic manipulation to create hybrid soldiers. Beings engineered for combat, stripped of free will. But she found something else too, didn't you, Talia?" The scientist nodded, her scaled skin catching the light. "The experiments weren't just unethical, they were changing the fundamental nature of the test subject's consciousness. Creating a hive mind that could be controlled by the consortium's leadership. They wanted an army that couldn't question orders, couldn't resist." Adrian's security training kicked in as he processed the implications. An army like that could overthrow any government, crush any resistance. "Exactly," Talia said, pulling up more data. "Your mother found a way to block the process, to protect individual consciousness from being subsumed. That's why they came after her. That's why they're still hunting." A sudden alert from one of Talia's security systems interrupted them. Multiple vehicles were converging on their location. Adrian moved to check the perimeter feeds, his professional instincts taking over. "They're using thermal masking," he noted, studying the patterns. "Professional strike team." "We need to move," Lasara said, already gathering crucial data crystals. Talia, the backup site. The scientist shook her head, all four eyes blinking in sequence. Not safe. They know too much. But. She hesitated, looking at Adrian. There's your mother's sanctuary. The coordinates are encrypted in her final research log. Adrian turned from the security feed. You know where she is? Not exactly, Talia replied, her fingers flying over interfaces. But I can help you find her. The log contains a quantum-encoded map, tied to both your genetic signatures. Together, you can decrypt it. The sound of breach charges being set echoed through the laboratory. Adrian drew his pulse pistol, checking the charge. Time to go. Talia. The scientist was already activating emergency protocols, destroying sensitive data. I'll hold them off. I have certain modifications they won't be expecting. As if to demonstrate, her scaled skin rippled and began to match the color of the laboratory walls. We can't leave you, Lasara protested, but Talia cut her off with a gentle touch. Your mother's work must be protected. Go. Find her. Stop the consortium before they succeed. Adrian grabbed his sister's arm, pulling her toward a concealed exit as Talia's camouflage ability rendered her nearly invisible. They fled through maintenance tunnels as the sound of combat erupted behind them, Talia's defensive systems engaging the strike team. She'll be okay, Lasara said, though whether she was trying to convince Adrian or herself wasn't clear. Talia survived worse. They emerged in a different sector of the city, rain falling in sheets from the perpetually dark sky. Adrian led them through a series of evasive maneuvers, using every trick he'd learned in his security work to shake any pursuit. Finally, in a quiet corner of an abandoned maglev station, they had a moment to catch their breath. Adrian pulled out the data crystal containing their mother's research log, studying its shifting surface. We need to decode this, he said. Find out where she's hiding. Lasara nodded, her violet skin gleaming with rain droplets. It'll take both of us. That's why she designed it this way, she knew we'd have to work together. Adrian looked at his alien sister, really looked at her. In the short time since she'd appeared at his door, his world had been turned upside down. But for the first time in 25 years, he felt like he was on the right path. Then let's get to work, he said. It's time to find our mother. The pursuit. The quantum decryption process was taking longer than expected. Adrian and Lasara had taken refuge in one of his emergency safehouses, a converted shipping container hidden among thousands of identical units in Neo-Pacific City's massive port complex. The small space was cramped but secure, filled with the soft blue glow from their decryption equipment. Another failed sequence, Lasara sighed, her violet skin looking pale under the harsh emergency lighting. She'd been working for hours, combining her genetic signature with Adrian's in various patterns, trying to unlock their mother's encrypted coordinates. Adrian looked up from his security feeds. Maybe we're overthinking it. Mom always said the simplest solution was usually the right one. You remember her saying that? Lasara's eyes lit up with interest. She'd been asking about their mother, trying to piece together the woman she barely knew through Adrian's memories. She said it all the time, Adrian smiled, the memory bittersweet. Usually when I was struggling with my homework. She'd dash, he stopped suddenly, an idea forming. Wait. Simple solutions. What if? He moved to the decryption interface, pulling up the raw genetic data. We've been trying complex combinations, but what if we just... He pressed his palm to the scanner, then gestured for Lasara to do the same. Their genetic patterns displayed side by side, distinct but with clear commonalities. The data crystal pulsed with new light, and suddenly the encryption began to unravel. A star map materialized in the air between them, showing a path through little-used hyperspace routes. The twilight rim, Lasara breathed. She's hiding in the boundary space between human and alien territories. Neutral ground. Before they could celebrate their breakthrough, every security alert in the safe house began flashing red. Adrian's eyes darted to the feeds, his expression hardening. Multiple teams converging. They must have traced our decryption signal. He was already moving, grabbing essential equipment. We need to move. Now. The sound of mag boots on metal told them the consortium forces were already on the container stack. Adrian led Lasara to a maintenance hatch in the floor, revealing a narrow passage between container rows. "Hope you're not claustrophobic," he muttered as they squeezed into the tight space. They moved as quickly as they dared through the maze-like gaps between containers, the sounds of pursuit echoing confusingly around them. Adrian's knowledge of the port's layout was their only advantage, but even that might not be enough. "There's a smuggler's dock 2 sections over," he whispered. "If we can reach it dash." The container wall beside them suddenly glowed cherry red as a plasma cutter began slicing through. Adrian pushed Lasara ahead just as the metal gave way, returning fire with his pulse pistol to cover their retreat. They emerged onto a hanging walkway, rain pelting them as lightning split the night sky. The smuggler's dock was visible below, where a sleek courier ship was preparing for launch. "That's our ride," Adrian said, leading them along the precarious walkway. "I know the pilot. She owes me a favor." A plasma bolt sizzled past his head, forcing them to take cover behind a ventilation unit. Consortium forces were deploying on multiple levels, trying to box them in. "Adrian," Lasara's voice was tight with concern. "There's something I need to tell you. About why they want me specifically." She held up her hand, and for a moment her violet skin seemed to shift and ripple, taking on the metallic texture of the ventilation unit. "Mom's research. I was one of her successes. She found a way to incorporate beneficial genetic modifications without sacrificing free will." Adrian stared at his sister, pieces clicking into place. "That's why they've been hunting you so hard. You're proof that their whole weapons program is unnecessary." More plasma fire forced them to move. They were almost to the ship now, but the consortium forces were closing in. The pilot had started the launch sequence, they only had moments. "Go!" Adrian shouted, laying down covering fire. "I'll hold them off." "Not without you." Lasara grabbed his arm, her enhanced strength surprising him as she pulled him toward the ship. "I didn't find my brother just to lose him." They made a desperate sprint for the landing pad, plasma bolts crackling around them. The ship's cargo ramp was already closing as they dove through the narrowing gap, landing hard on the deck plates as the vessel lurched into the air. In the cockpit, a gruff voice called back to them, "You know my policy on shooting, Drake. Any holes in my ship come out of your hide." "Good to see you too, Captain Reza," Adrian called back, helping Lasara to her feet. Through the viewports, they watched Neo-Pacific City fall away beneath them, the consortium forces reduced to tiny figures on the dock. As the ship broke atmosphere, Lasara studied the star map they'd decoded. "It's a long way to the Twilight Rim. The consortium will be watching all the major routes." "Then we don't take major routes," Adrian said, settling into a jump seat. "Reza here knows every smuggler's path in 3 sectors. Don't you, Captain?" The pilot's laugh was rough but friendly. "For what you're gonna owe me after this, Drake, I'll plot you a course through hell itself." Adrian looked at Lasara, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. They were committed now, running headlong into unknown territory with powerful enemies on their trail. But somewhere out there, their mother was waiting. And she had answers they desperately needed. "Plot a course, Captain," he said. "We've got a family reunion to get to." Legacy revealed. The Twilight Rim lived up to its name. The border zone between human and alien space was a perpetual aurora of quantum energies and stellar phenomena, making it perfect for hiding. Captain Reza's ship, the Starcross, navigated through curtains of crystalline radiation that would have fried less skilled pilots. "Your mother picked one hell of a hiding spot," Reza commented from the pilot's seat, her cybernetic eyes processing the shifting energy patterns. 2 more hours to the coordinates, assuming we don't get atomized by a quantum surge. Adrian stood behind the pilot's chair, watching the ethereal display through the viewports. Beside him, Lasara was unusually quiet, her violet skin reflecting the rainbow lights of the rim. "Something's wrong," she said suddenly. "I can feel it. The genetic modifications Mom gave me, they make me sensitive to certain energy patterns. There's something ahead that doesn't belong here." Reza's sensors confirmed it moments later. "Multiple ships in holding patterns around your destination. Big ones. Consortium military class." Adrian's jaw tightened. "They got here first. But how?" "The decryption signal," Lasara realized. "They didn't need to decode it themselves, they just followed our work. We led them right to her." Before they could change course, the Starcross's systems suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in as a massive ship decloaked directly ahead of them, its hull crackling with the same energy that had just disabled their systems. "Quantum dampening field," Reza growled, her cybernetic fingers dancing uselessly over dead controls. "We're being pulled in." Through the viewport, they watched helplessly as the consortium vessel's docking bay swallowed them whole. Armed troops were already gathering on the landing deck. "Any bright ideas?" Reza asked, checking her own weapons. Adrian was about to respond when Lasara grabbed his arm. "Wait. Look at their uniforms. Those aren't consortium troops." She was right. The soldiers surrounding their ship wore insignias Adrian had never seen before, a spiral of DNA wrapped around a burning star. A voice crackled through their ship's emergency speakers, "Adrian and Lasara Drake. Your mother's been expecting you." The docking bay doors opened to reveal a familiar figure walking toward their ship. She was older than in Adrian's memories, her hair now silver instead of brown, but her eyes, their eyes, were exactly the same. "Mom," Adrian whispered. The reunion on the landing deck was surreal. 25 years of separation collapsed into a moment as Elena Drake embraced both her children, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry," she said, holding them tight. "I never wanted to leave either of you. But I had to protect what we discovered. What we created." Looking around the massive ship, Adrian began to understand. "This isn't a consortium vessel at all, is it?" Elena shook her head, pride evident in her expression. "This is the Phoenix Initiative. Everything I've been building since I went into hiding. A force to counter the consortium's plans for genetic warfare." She led them through the ship, explaining as they walked. The Phoenix Initiative was composed of scientists, soldiers, and volunteers from dozens of species, all working together to prevent the consortium's attempt to create their controlled army. The consortium's leadership believes that peace can only be achieved through absolute control, Elena explained as they entered a vast laboratory complex. They want to create a universe where independent thought is eliminated, where their will is the only will. But we found another way. The laboratory was filled with people of various species, all working together seamlessly. Some showed signs of genetic modification similar to Lasara's, enhanced abilities without loss of individuality. "Lasara was our first success," Elena said softly. "Proof that genetic science could be used to enhance and unite rather than control and suppress. But the consortium couldn't accept that. They wanted weapons, not bridges between species. And now they're getting close to their goal," Lasara added. "That's why you needed both of us. Not just to find you, but to help stop them." Elena nodded, bringing up a holographic display of a massive facility. "This is the consortium's primary research center, hidden in the Corona Cloud Nebula. They're preparing to launch their first wave of controlled soldiers. Once they do, it will be nearly impossible to stop them." Adrian studied the facility's defenses with a professional eye. "Those are serious fortifications. A direct assault would be suicide. That's why we don't attack directly, Elena smiled. We have something they never considered, a family that bridges the gap between human and alien. Together, your combined genetic signatures can bypass their security systems. You can get us inside. It's not just about stopping their program, is it? Lysara asked, understanding dawning in her eyes. You want to free the test subjects. Give them back their free will. The process can be reversed, Elena confirmed. But only if we act soon. The consortium is planning to launch their operation in less than 48 hours. Adrian looked at his mother, then at his sister. 25 years ago, his family had been torn apart by this conflict. Now they had a chance to make it right, not just for themselves, but for countless others who would be enslaved by the consortium's plans. Well, he said, checking his weapons, we've got some catching up to do. Might as well do it while saving the galaxy. Elena's smile was fierce and proud. That's my children. Now, let me show you exactly how we're going to pull this off. Final confrontation. The Corona Cloud Nebula burned around them, its crimson gases casting an apocalyptic glow through the Phoenix Initiative ship's viewports. Ahead, barely visible through the stellar interference, loomed the consortium's research facility, a massive structure of black metal and pulsing energy fields. Security systems are even heavier than our intel suggested, Adrian noted, studying the tactical displays. They've upgraded everything. They know we're coming, Elena said, making final adjustments to the specialized equipment she'd prepared. But they don't know exactly how. She handed both Adrian and Lysara sleek devices that attached to their wrists. These will amplify your genetic signatures. Together, you should be able to create a bypass effect that will read as authorized personnel. Lysara's violet skin shifted slightly, unconsciously matching the deep red of the nebula around them. And once we're inside, the central core houses their genetic control systems, Elena explained. I've developed a retrovirus that can reverse their modifications, free their subjects. But it has to be introduced directly into their main processor. Captain Reyes' voice came over the intercom, multiple patrol ships on an intercept course. Whatever we're doing, we need to do it fast. The plan was relatively simple, though its execution would be anything but. The Phoenix Initiative's fleet would engage the consortium's outer defenses, creating a diversion. Meanwhile, Adrian and Lysara would use their combined genetic signatures to infiltrate the facility through a maintenance dock, make their way to the central core, and upload their mother's retrovirus. Remember, Elena said as they prepared to board their small infiltration craft, the consortium's controlled soldiers will be stronger, faster, and completely without fear or hesitation. But they're also linked into a central network. Free one, and that freedom will spread through their connection. She hugged both her children fiercely. I lost you both once. Come back to me. The initial infiltration went smoother than expected. Their combined genetic signatures fooled the automated systems, just as Elena had predicted. But as they moved deeper into the facility, things became more complicated. Movement ahead, Adrian whispered, checking the scanner he'd borrowed from Reza. 2 guards. But something's wrong with their readings. They soon saw what he meant. The guards moved with an unnatural precision, their eyes vacant behind their faceplates. These were the consortium's success stories, humans and aliens stripped of individuality, turned into living weapons. We can't hurt them, Lysara said softly. They're victims. Adrian nodded, switching his weapon to a stun setting. But before either of them could act, one of the guards turned and looked directly at Lysara. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, incredibly, the guard's vacant expression flickered. Your genetic pattern, the guard said, his voice mechanical but with an underlying tremor of confusion. It's familiar. Like a memory of freedom. Lysara stepped forward despite Adrian's attempt to stop her. Because I am free. Like you were meant to be. Like you can be again. The second guard raised his weapon, but the first stopped him. Through their neural link, something was spreading, a spark of independent thought, triggered by recognition of Lasara's unique genetic signature. The central core, the first guard said, fighting against his programming. I can show you a faster way. With the guard's help, they reached the central processing chamber in half the time they'd planned. But their success had not gone unnoticed. Waiting for them was High Commander Voss, the architect of the consortium's genetic program. Fascinating, Voss said, his cybernetically enhanced body humming with barely contained power. Elena's children, working together. The perfect test subjects. His augmented eyes focused on Lasara. Especially you, my dear. A living proof of concept. The only thing we're proving, Adrian said, moving to protect his sister, is that your whole program is unnecessary. People don't need to be controlled to work together. Peace through freedom, Lasara added, not through force. Voss laughed, the sound disturbingly artificial. Freedom is chaos. Individuality is weakness. Allow me to demonstrate. He sent a command surge through his neural link to the facility's network. Throughout the chamber, dozens of controlled soldiers emerged from hidden alcoves, weapons raised. The future requires unity, Voss declared. Perfect, unquestioning unity. But something was wrong. The soldiers moved forward, but their movements were jerky, uncertain. Through their neural link, the spark of independence that had started with the two guards was spreading, amplified by Lasara's presence. No, one soldier said. We choose, said another. The neural network that Voss had intended to ensure control was becoming a pathway for liberation. Soldier after soldier lowered their weapons, their vacant expressions replacing with confusion, anger, and most importantly, hope. Impossible. Voss roared, his cybernetic enhancements crackling with power as he charged toward the central processor. I'll purge the entire network. Adrian's combat training took over. He tackled Voss, both of them crashing into a bank of equipment. They fought brutally, cybernetic enhancement against human determination. But Adrian wasn't fighting alone. As Voss tried to interface with the facility's systems, Lasara used her own genetic modifications to disrupt his connection. The moment of distraction was all Adrian needed. A precisely placed stun blast overloaded Voss's cybernetic systems, sending him crashing to the ground. Lasara quickly uploaded their mother's retrovirus into the central processor. Throughout the facility, the neural network that had been used to enslave now became the pathway to freedom. The retrovirus spread rapidly, breaking the genetic bonds of control while maintaining the beneficial modifications. Multiple consortium ships powering down, Reyes' voice came through their comms. Their crews, they're standing down. Elena's voice joined in, the retrovirus is spreading through their entire network. Every modified soldier, every controlled operative, they're all waking up. Hours later, aboard the Phoenix Initiative's flagship, Adrian stood with his family, his complete family, watching as the Corona Cloud Nebula lit up with ships. But now these ships carried freed soldiers returning to their homes, to families they'd been forced to forget. There will be challenges ahead, Elena said, watching the display. The consortium's leadership will try to rebuild. And all these people, they'll need help adjusting to freedom. That's what family is for, Lasara said, her violet skin glowing with contentment. Supporting each other through challenges. Adrian looked at his mother and sister, marveling at how complete he felt. Well, we've got 25 years of family time to catch up on. Might as well spend it helping others find their way home too. Elena hugged both her children close. Above them, the Corona Cloud Nebula continued to burn, but now its light seemed less apocalyptic and more like a new dawn. A dawn of freedom, of choice, and of family bonds that transcended species, space, and time itself.